The Addams Family is one of the most iconic sitcoms of all time, grossing over $326 million worldwide and spawning an impressive number of spin-offs, including the animated series The New Addams Family, 2 theatrical films, a stage, musical, and even a 1973 variety special hosted by Carol Burnett. But how did this spooky yet heartwarming show come to be? Well, that's what we're here to tell you. So grab your swords and shields, because it's story time. Gomez and Morticia Addams were created by cartoonist Charles Addams for a series of single-panel cartoons in the New Yorker magazine. They first appeared in these cartoons in September 1938 and were a hit with fans from the very beginning. Although Gomez and Morticia didn't have names initially, they did have a small cottage in the New Yorker cartoons, and even made a few television appearances via a claymation short in the anthology series, The New York Sketchbook, and a live-action segment on the variety show Broadway Is My Beat. Throughout the 1940s and 50s, Charles Addams continued to expand upon the world he had created, developing the characters further and introducing new members of the family such as Uncle Fester, Grandmama, Lurch, and Thing. A number of these cartoons would later be adapted for prime time, becoming the basis for the first Addams Family TV series, which aired from 1964 to 1966. But despite their enduring popularity, there was a point where the plug was pulled on the show due to growing concerns about its suitability for young audiences. However, that wasn't the end for the spooky family, and although their future looked dark and gloomy, lightning struck twice when the family was brought back in the form of a variety special in 1973. Let's take a look at how the special came to be and why it saved the family from cancellation. It all started when actress and comedian Carol Burnett was looking for ideas for her upcoming variety special. In an interview with Debbie Does Dallas, she explained, "I remember saying to my producer, Joe Hamilton, I need something that will get a laugh just from the title. It didn't matter what I did. I knew it would be funny just from the title alone. So we started thinking about things, and then Joe said, 'What about the Addams Family?' And I said, 'Oh, my God, yes.'" After obtaining the rights to the beloved characters, Carol and her team got to work assembling a star-studded cast. The initial plan was to include only Gomez and Morticia in the special, but after some convincing from producers, Carol agreed to feature the rest of the Addams Family, too. She recalled, "They said, 'We really want to do the whole family,' and I told them I thought we could pull it off if we used the mansion as our set for most of it and then used the studio audience as extras." While most of the filming took place at the Silu Studio Center in Burbank, California, some exterior shots were also included. These were filmed at Mel Blanc's former home. Yes, that Mel Blanc, the voice of Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, Daffy Duck, and countless other Looney Tunes characters. He sold his mansion at the peak of his career in the early 1960s, but it was still standing and in relatively good condition. So the production decided to use it as the backdrop for the special. The house was perfect for the role, but unfortunately, Mr. Blank passed away before he had the chance to see it on screen. Now, let's talk about the music. Unlike the original series, which featured a jazz score composed by Vic Mizzy, the variety special was more like a song and dance extravaganza. The musical numbers included the classics, Addams Family, Time Out, The Nearer My Goal, I Love You, Happy Birthday, and Crazier Than You, plus a few new songs written specifically for the special, like What Do You Want Me to Do? And One Day More. The latter was a show-stopping finale number performed by John Astin and Jackie Joseph. Astin played Gomez and Joseph played Morticia. Both actors were coming off the success of the original series, having played the same roles. There, too, other notable cast members included Ken Weatherwax as Mary, Lisa Loring as Wednesday, and Slim Pickens as Mama. Unfortunately, both Lisa and Ken would go on to appear in the 1991 film adaptation as well. But before we get into that, let's finish talking about the variety special. Despite being a hit with viewers and critics alike, the special didn't lead to another season of The Addams Family. According to Carol, the network executives felt that it was a fluke and were unconvinced audiences would tune in again if the show was given a second chance. This wasn't the first time they'd tried to cancel the series. The original run ended because, according to actor John Astin, who played Gomez, the censors kept cutting scenes out of the show because they were deemed too horrifying for television. Some of these included an execution scene, a black widow spider crawling on Morticia's arm, and even a kiss between Gomez and Fester. All of these were perfectly normal occurrences in the cartoons, but television was still a relatively new medium, and censorship was widespread. As John puts it, we were too horrible for television. In spite of this, the show managed to make a comeback in the 1970s thanks to the variety special, which served as a sort of dry run for the feature-length film. Now, going into this project, it was important for the production team to make sure it didn't feel like a TV movie. To achieve this, they aimed to make it more like a theatrical release by adding new material, including a framing device involving a pair of bumbling thieves and their dim-witted accomplice. The film follows the gang as they travel to New York City to attend a convention of rich, eccentric people. Their hopes of winning an award for being the wealthiest, most dysfunctional family are dashed when they're mistaken for European tourists and robbed by two bumbling thieves, Brick and Brannigan. Later, they're rescued by a kindly police officer named Harry, who becomes their reluctant accomplice. But perhaps the biggest draw of the film was seeing the beloved characters come to life. And director Gary Nelson knew this, so he ensured that all the best bits were included. Like Thing in a boxing glove punching someone squarely in the groin, and a creepy clown doll that comes to life and attacks one of the thieves. Speaking of which, the makeup effects were handled by Paul Blaisdell, who had previously worked on the original series and several episodes of Star Trek. According to him, the most difficult part of the job was making Grandmama look old without making her look like an old woman. He wanted her to look closer to 100 years old than 65. So he painted lines and wrinkles all over her face and used a little trickery to droop her eyelids. Additionally, he gave Lurch exaggerated facial features and long fingernails to emphasize his clumsiness. The goal was to make Lurch as awkward as possible. As Paul says, when he opens his mouth to talk, you can barely see his teeth. His gums are big and his lips don't part much. I wanted him to look like his limbs were too long for his body, and that he tripped over everything because he could uncoordinate his arms and legs properly. The film was a massive hit, earning $110 million at the box office against a budget of only $2.5 million. It was so well received, in fact, that a sequel was greenlit almost immediately. But unlike its predecessor, the sequel was based on the cartoon rather than the series. The plot follows the family as they deal with the arrival of a slick con man named Tully Alford, who happens to be the long-lost brother of Uncle Fester. Tully is trying to win over the family by claiming to share Fester's devotion to dangerous hobbies, but his true intentions are to swindle them out of their fortune. Although the movie deviates from the source material in some ways, it stays true to the spirit of the cartoons. Just as the Addams Family had always been interested in morbid subjects, Tully finds himself inexplicably drawn to a coffin. One might even go so far as to say he's fascinated by death. This morbid curiosity leads him to Uncle Fester, who becomes his unlikely partner in crime. Together, they hatch a scheme to kidnap Gomez and blackmail Morticia for ransom. However, the plan quickly falls apart when Tully accidentally electrocutes himself while trying to hotwire a car. Fester, who has developed a taste for anarchy, takes over and holds the town hostage with explosives. The situation is diffused by Morticia, who uses her psychic powers to put him in a good mood. Everyone rides off into the sunset together, laughing and singing. Despite the film's commercial success, it received mixed reviews from critics, who felt that it strayed too far from the characters and tone of the original series. Some reviewers even went so far as to call it a cheap cash grab. Nonetheless, the film spawned another TV series, which ran from 1998 to 1999. This series attempted to blend elements of both the original series and the movies, but it ultimately failed to find its footing, and was cancelled after only one season. So there you have it, the story of the Addams Family, from their humble beginnings in The New Yorker, to their triumphant return on the big screen. This truly is a story for the ages. Thanks for watching.